Chapter 9. America at War, October to December 1941. By the winter of 1941, war had been raging across Europe, Asia and Africa for over 2 years. Millions were living in fear throughout occupied Europe, while many were suffering unimaginable atrocities in concentration and prison camps. In Africa, fighting continued between the Allies and Hitler's Axis powers, while in China, terror bombings by the Japanese continued to ravage the vast nation. Meanwhile, Britain had survived the onslaught of German bombs rained down upon them during the Blitz, and taking advantage of some much-needed respite, Winston Churchill and the British people looked on as Hitler turned his attention to the Eastern Front and the Soviets. While it seemed that the entire world was falling under the dark shadow of conflict, the United States of America had also been watching events unfold from afar, despite the fact that preparations had been underway to join the Allies in battle for some time. It wasn't until December 1941 that events drew President Roosevelt and the American people into the war. When Japanese bombers swarmed above Pearl Harbour, unleashing a devastatingly violent attack, thousands of servicemen were killed as the U.S. Naval Fleet based there was decimated. The reaction from Washington was swift, and the Empire of the Rising Sun had woken a sleeping giant, opening a new chapter in the history of the Second World War. From the drama of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbour to the battles in the jungles and islands of the Pacific, this chapter reveals the reasons behind America's late entry into the fight against the Axis powers and how their economic and military strength shone a ray of hope on those fighting desperately for freedom all around the world. The United States had long been known as the land of plenty, and from rivers glistening with gold deposits to vast territories rich in natural resources where growing towering cities exuded new wealth, the country had boasted its affluence from coast to coast. For many flooding into America as immigrants from overseas, the USA was seen as a place where dreams really could come true. But despite an abundance of jobs, land and resources, after the First World War, even the mighty home of the free had its problems. When the Wall Street crash struck in 1929, it dealt a devastating blow to the once booming economy, and as queues of poverty-stricken folk seeking work began to form on the streets, other nations were soon to follow the USA into the dark period of turmoil as the world faced the desperate days of the Great Depression. The economic problems were far-reaching, and across the Atlantic in Europe, Germany, still reeling from having to pay reparations after being defeated in the First World War, was particularly hard hit. Inflation rocketed, and as the economy froze, millions were made bankrupt. The German nation was plunged into poverty, and a discontented population was attracted to the promises of the Nazi Party, led by the fervently patriotic Adolf Hitler, who vowed to create a new age of wealth and affluence. His rousing speeches soon began to captivate the German people, and Hitler quickly rose to a position of unassailable power. By 1936, the Nazi dictator proved he was a man of his word, and when he ordered Nazi troops to march into the Rhineland, territory seized from Germany after World War I, he was able to secure precious raw materials to feed his empire-building ambitions. While nations fell to Hitler, toppling like dominoes across Europe as the Nazis pushed further west, far across the world in Eastern Pacific, the Japanese were watching the Western empires crumble. Their tiny island kingdom had also been affected by the depression engulfing the world, and following the crash of 1929, Japanese incomes had dropped by 2/3, and banks had foreclosed on many businesses. As the value of the yen continued to fall, with few natural resources of its own, Japan had faced a crisis on the scale of Germany, and just like the Germans, the Japanese had started to fight for their survival. Right-wing propagandists began pressing for the invasion of Manchuria in eastern China to ensure a supply of raw materials to feed the economy, and in 1931 the Imperial Army of Japan took their first steps towards creating a great Eastern Empire. While the leader of the Chinese National Front, Chiang Kai-shek, faced the invading Japanese, by
Sample complete. Ready to continue?